And that's what I always say. Like if you lose tension, if you don't feel it on your pecs, like something else is taking it. And I don't know how this is not intuitive to people. I think there's a lot of benefits to working the shortened range of motion. Like people were like, I was listening to Dr. Mike, and then I saw how shitty he looked on stage.
I want to kick things off talking about chest hypertrophy. I've heard you talk about topics such as how rib cage compression can ruin your physique. So with that being said, can you tell me what's the secret to building impressive pecs, kind of in the lens of an intermediate lifter who's maybe not a biomechanics expert?
Yeah. So usually when I'm speaking about chest pressing, I'm just talking about it through what we call like the ECM lens, the expansion compression model. From Bill Hartman mainly, but I also have a lot of experience with like PRI. I started with that before, and they're different, like kind of rehab kind of things that look at the body a little bit differently, a little more complex than just the dead guy anatomy, traditional levers and moment arms and that kind of stuff. So one of the big principles that a lot of people overlook if they do look at like exercise strictly through the traditional lens is how big of an impact like shape has on everything. Like your rib cage position, your pelvic position, they really have a big influence on the things directly attached to it, but especially those, but things that go more distal too, like your rib cage position can be the reason that you've got tennis elbow or golfer elbow, and that's pretty distal from it. So something to keep in mind is like this is going to transfer force, and we can either use that like in a good way or a bad way. So for whatever reason, like powerlifting seems to have like infiltrated the bodybuilding world, at least with like their technique a lot of times, because big range of motion, heavyweight, you kind of have to do it that way. And so most powerlifters, big arch. So most bodybuilders now, they want to move more weight. And it is, I think there may have been a time too where maybe not as many people lift it like that. And there could have been potentially some issues for certain like populations, and arching like really makes them feel better. So they could really be talking about that. And then you have this powerlifting culture saying this is how you move the most weight. And if you look at it through just a dead guy anatomy lens, it kind of makes sense. The line of pull from here to there, pull back. But when we take into account like the actual like shape of the rib cage and how much are we actually putting tension on the muscle, because you'll see kind of two different things. You'll see someone start with like the really big arch and they think that's expanding the rib cage, but in reality, it's compressing the back and just pushing it forward. So that's not actually, especially on these sternal fibers, it's not actually a stretch. You're getting, some localized stretch, but all the stuff that attaches to your rib cage, that's going to be stretched when it becomes volumized. I don't know, this is mainly audio. I have my rib cage somewhere around here, but it's basically you lose the stretch when you lose the shape of your rib cage. So many people think, oh, just because I'm pushing it forward, I'm getting a bigger stretch. And no, you've devolumized. So like the analogy you think of is like, don't think of like a car, right? Like anything that's getting inflated, like the more pressure, you're going to have more stretch, more tension on the tires. So when you lose that, what happens is we kind of like really lose all the middle fibers. And it's not all of them. Everyone's a little different too. But whenever we can keep that expansion going, our shoulder blades won't be so retracted. So the first thing you should think is just don't squeeze the shit out of your shoulder blades. Let them set down, like more depressed. That's usually the first cue. Most people are pretty flared with the ribs, and that's where we want to just bring them down subtly. Now, I got a lot of people who kind of like overdo things and go crazy. It's all like small motions. Like some people get really, really overboard. But when you set that rib cage down, which is a stack, which is nothing new. These are all shit that I was taught, 20 years ago that I think a lot of people were. And when you start your press from that position, it's a little bit different. So there's so much going on, right? So whenever we're pulled back here, our joints are totally stable. We're not really moving a lot through those joints. We're really putting a lot more on the muscle. You need to do that if you're lifting 1 rep max, 2 rep max. But if we're actually just trying to work in that hypertrophy range, we need like relative motion. We need things to move in conjunction, because stability is not just lock it in and don't let it move, but it's let it move, but under control. So we'll set the shoulders down, but not squeeze back. And there will be a little bit of movement in them, like forward and backwards. So on the way down, what you want to try to do is not retract like a crazy bit more. A lot of people, when they get to their bottom, like in range of motion, they end up kind of just squeezing. That's not that. That's just compression through your rib cage, and that's losing tension on the front. Like I tell people to stretch their pecs all the time. You can kind of feel it, like if you got a tight pec, right, and you just let it squeeze back versus creating a little bit of like intra-abdominal pressure, you feel that tension on the front. And it's the same thing with the bench press. So I just started when first thing you do is set up hand grip wherever it feels good. We'll just do the bench press for an example, but you could use it like anything. So bench press, whatever grip width feels good, typically not too wide.
Mhm.
Set the shoulder blade down, set your rib cage down, closing, and that and really focus on the breath. A lot of people hold their breath, but that's how you actually get the true expansion. And that's also how you get the best contraction through creating what we call like a compression wave. That's not important. What we want to do is just inhale on the way down, feel that ribcage expansion. And as you're pressing up, you should see the starting to move. Like a lot of people preach you shouldn't see the ribcage move at all. Like that's not really what you want to happen. That's not like a functional like way the scapulohumeral rhythm like moves. It all kind of goes together. So as you exhale, there should be slight protraction, not to the point where we're rolling for anything, but there should be a little movement of the shoulder blades. And as you exhale, you should see that sternum drop. So the biggest thing is just don't squeeze the shit out of your shoulder cage, or your rib cage. Make sure it's down. Shoulder blades aren't totally back. And if you can kind of maintain that, like you probably need to use a little bit lighter weight for sure to not result to those compensations. And you probably need to maybe even use a smaller range of motion too. Like maybe even do Joel Seaman like 90 degrees at first while you're getting used to keeping it there, especially if you're a more narrow individual. You're going to put it on your skeletal system a little easier. So that's probably the most popular video I have is the whole chest training video where I dive really deep into that.
I guess a couple of questions. Do you feel like if you're going lower in the range of motion and you lose tension on the pec, that maybe that's where you should stop the range of motion?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if that's your goal is just working your pecs, which
Yeah.
as bodybuilders in the gym, that's usually our goal. I mean, if you have to hit an arbitrary range of motion, then you've got to hit it as a powerlifter. But even the powerlifters I work with, we're still doing 75% of our actual workouts with a better like ECM lens, and then we're just touching the chest like 25% or so. So yeah, that's what I always say. Like if you lose tension, if you don't feel it on your pecs, like something else is taking it. And I don't know how this is not intuitive to people. I think it is, but they've been like had it like trained out of them by the science.
Yeah, we get told some stuff like mind muscle connection doesn't matter at all, or muscle soreness doesn't matter at all. But I think these are like hints and like cues that you can use and say, okay, like I get I'm not going to necessarily be sore every time, but I should be able to feel the tension in the muscle that I'm targeting, right? And then the challenge is we get told that we need to do such a large range of motion that A, we lose tension on the pec, and B, at least for myself, it's caused all sorts of like shoulder and tendon issues in the past by maybe doing a more exaggerated and large range of motion than my body can handle.
Yeah, that's the thing I hear so much from everybody is, okay, like I feel my pecs, but also like now I'm not fucked up everywhere. And, I'm lucky that I kind of always did this intuitively just because I felt so good and my chest has been such a strong body part, like aesthetically for me. And then like later as I'm learning, like, oh, like that's why, like when I was younger, I remember kids like my age were not quite as developed as me, but they were lifting more weight than me. And I'm like, they look like shit kind of, and I look good and I feel so much like, even though I'm doing less, I'm going to keep doing this and end up paying off because yeah, I mean, so many people have fucked up shoulders because you just, like I said, that's not the natural like rhythm that our body needs to do. When you're just loading that over and over again, you start compressing your rib cage both ways. Like then we start running out of joint space. Like we become pretty limited when we think we're doing something that's supposed to be like progressing us. We're like actually causing a lot of damage and limiting our options.
You talked about like a little bit of abdominal pressure. Can you like dumb that down for the audience in terms of what you mean there?
So there's two things, and credit to Zach Couples too, because me and him really like went into this on one of our podcasts, and he really explained it really well too. Like, so you have intra-abdominal pressure, but also you have intrathoracic pressure, and that's probably even more important for most people, which you can think of just the area between your shoulder blades and your back, because we can like crunch down here and have like nothing there. So we're not trying to like activate the six-pack abs while you're doing your lifts necessarily. There are some times when you're so oriented one way, like you have to orient a little bit. Like when I was working with Sergio Oliva, he's one of the widest human beings in the world. He's like 6 feet wide, shoulder to shoulder. And when you're a wider person like that, what we call like a wide ISA, you get really compressed posteriorly. So he is just like so arched, so flared that I have to have him orient like a little bit with the more superficial muscles to kind of bring him to the midline. But in general, unless you're that kind of body structure, you want to engage your abs, but not with like the rectus abs, not with the outer ones. So you're going to use your internal obliques and your like transverse abdominals, but you really get it through breath. So it's not like you crunch. It's just you try to get these ribs to drop on an exhale without losing any height. And that's the like abdominal pressure. The intrathoracic pressure is really going to come more on the inhale. As you inhale, like on the descent, you can feel that area between the back of your shoulder blades actually expanding with air. And that's the trick. If you can do that, you can really direct tension like everywhere that you want, like on every body part. You know, if I'm doing like a shoulder extension move, if I play with what I'm doing with my shoulder girdle and I've got that intrathoracic pressure, I can make it super lat bias. I can make it super tricep bias. I can keep tension on my shoulders really good when you're able to expand posteriorly. So that's an area that a lot of people are missing, is they think about the abs, but then they miss the intrathoracic pressure. And that's probably even more important, I would say.
Okay. I'm going to throw out a couple of more exercises that aren't presses, and maybe you can talk through how we should think about those exercises as well. So like a fly or a pec deck, and then maybe even a dip, like a seated dip or something like that. Like, how should we think about our body positioning, the cues and things like that through the lens of those two exercises?
Yeah. And there's always, there's such a spectrum, right? So I kind of give advice that's for like 80% of the people, but if you're on one of the real big ends of the extremes, it's gonna be a little different. Like I've got some people that are just, I got like one guy who's like so pulled down that like for him, I'm like, arch your fucking back as hard as you can, squeeze those fucking shoulder blades together as hard as you can. Where it's like, I would never cue that to anybody else. So in general, on the fly, it's not that much different than the press. Now you are going to get more compression, like you're going to squeeze your shoulder blades more and more retraction than you would on a press, but you want to start that same kind of set. Like what happens a lot of times on flies, happens on presses, but more flies, is as soon as they start to pull apart, like their shoulder blades just immediately retract like all the way, and like that's missing a lot of tension. So you want to keep that from happening. You can think about keeping a little bit of the ribs down initially, and they'll move. Like people don't fucking hold your ribs still. Like I see some people trying to do what I tell them, and it's like they're just not letting them move at all. Like no, you don't want to do that either way. You don't want to be stuck up. You don't want to be stuck down. So they're gonna move on that inhale. They're still getting expansion. Now when you're at the back, you're retracted, but there's like a difference. And I have people hold this a lot. It's like a kind of a drill I have them do just to feel what it should feel like. So sometimes you just go like that fully squeezed position. Exhale, give yourself like a little protraction. Let your shoulder blades kind of go out and back on your shoulders, on your rib cage a little bit. Just kind of hold that and feel that tension there versus totally right there. It'll feel a lot different. I'll just do some isometrics like that at first for them to feel. And then once you feel connected, so you're hitting that range of motion, which is a pretty far range of motion. It's not like it's not, we're just not squeezed. So that's the only difference. And some people might not be able to go so far without squeezing necessarily. And for them, I actually really love alternating. If you're on a pec deck, I love alternating flies, because like think about what's happening versus like two sides. Like we got expansion occurring on the one posterior side instead of both of them, getting compressed. So if you have issues, that's a good way to kind of work around it. But as you're bringing them together, same thing. Exhale, let the rib cage come down. I just like to think protraction too. Like your pecs have a pretty big role with protraction. A lot of people, they just think about only the adduction on flies. I kind of initialize almost like a long arm press. So I almost thinking like press and then the adduction kind of. So that's how I do. And you can get some shape changes on this more than you would see on a bench press. You should see like actual little bit of that shape change occurring on a fly. And you'll feel a lot. If you hit that little protraction at the end, like you'll feel a lot.
So for the fly, it still is a pretty large range of motion. You're not really reducing the range of motion much. It's more just trying to focus on the tension, and it's almost changing the shape of the muscle.
Yeah, just think about that intrathoracic pressure, right? How far can I go while still maintaining some of that? You don't ever want to just give that up. It's not like you need to have it like so expanded, like we do want some movement, but yeah, how far can I go before I lose control of the abs and the ribs and the intrathoracic pressure?
Okay. And how about something like a dip, either like a calisthenic type dip or like a seated dip? How would you think through that?
So it's kind of like as you start going like more vertical with pressing kind of stuff, the rib cage gets like more stable, right? There's gonna be less movement. You're gonna be scapular depressed. As you kind of go to like more inclines, there's gonna be like a lot more movement of the rib cage just naturally. So that's another one a lot of people ask me about, because I talk about keeping your ribs kind of fixed, and like not fixed but just stable, and they're like, how do you do that on a dip? Well, it's like you're not supposed to. They are supposed to flare a little bit on the dip. So the things I would say is think about the hand contacts, especially just like on anything. Like make sure you got a pretty good amount on that area between your index finger and your thumb. That tends to be where people kind of lose it. They kind of ER out a little bit or something. And so it's the same concept. We want to always inhale on the way down. And I would say on a dip, I almost have like two styles of dips I'll do, like just me. And I don't coach this a lot, but it's like I'll do one dip style where I'm trying to keep my pec minor activated. I'm trying to keep some protraction. I'm trying to like get a little bit of that shape to my rib cage. So it's more of like a chest move. And so when I'm going down on that, I'm not necessarily going like so high. I'm still same concept. I'm still keeping my intra-abdominal pressure on, but there's going to be more rib cage movement just because of like the angle of your moving. And then if I'm doing the pecs, I'm thinking that same concept. I'm not really letting my shoulder blades get to the point where I lost my intrathoracic pressure. So I might be a little like shorter range of motion, 90-ish, 95, 100, slightly leaned. And as I push, I'm trying to kind of lean over and get a little bit of that scapular depression. And so that's something that you can do with no weight and make really hard. If I'm using weight, I might do like 2 plates, and that's about what I can do on there. And then you can also do it if you're just trying to get triceps. The rib cage position is important, but it's not going to dictate everything quite as much, right? Like it makes a difference, but on a tricep, you can really load heavy, and you can it might be too heavy for you to even like stay protracted. You might be a little shrugged up, but as long as you're, again, just keeping a little bit of those intra-abdominal pressure on and just not getting to the point where your shoulder blades roll forward, you can press and not get that shape back of your rib cage necessarily. You might gain like a little bit, but it won't be the same as like a chest where you're not retracting and you're staying a little protracted. On the tricep dip, sometimes I'll just go like four plates usually. So it's like double the weight. So I'm not maintaining that shape as much, but it's more load on just the elbow joint essentially. So I'm trying to stay a little more upright. And the main thing is on that, like I said, just not completely losing the intrathoracic pressure and not letting the shoulders dump forward. Now, on the chest one, you really want to pair that exhale. You're always going to exhale work. The exhale on the chest one is really going to help you drop the sternum. You're not really going to get that sternum drop on a dip one, like if you're really just isolating triceps, trying to go heavy.
So if you're focused on the chest, is it okay to have a bit of like a forward lean?
Yeah, I would like a little bit of a lean. Yeah.
Okay. All right, cool. So now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna throw up a couple of topics. Tell me if you think they're overrated, underrated, or fairly rated, and then we'll blurb about it. So first one here is mind-muscle connection.
Well, nowadays it's definitely underrated in my opinion. I don't think it was ever overrated. I think it used to be talked about. I actually talked about this with Frank Zane when I met him a couple years ago. I went out and did some posing with him before a show. Awesome experience. Spent like 6 hours. It was like an hour and a half session, and we just shot the shit for like all afternoon. Oh yeah, my man, he got it ready. That's a fucking pro right there. Yeah, that was awesome. And I asked him that. I was like, Frank, what do you think about this? Because I know you guys weren't like that. And he just, he's not connected. He's like, people are saying that. He's like, how can they say the mind muscle connection doesn't mean anything? He's like, what he told me is like, how you look like at the gym, like while you're working out, that's your future self. That pump, the pump you get, the connection you get, like that's going to be you in like a few months if you keep that up. That's just like a preview. I'm like, yeah, I mean, I think the pump and the mind muscle connection mean a lot. Like, I mean, there's a couple instances where maybe like you're doing something from like a really weird shortened range of motion, but it's like if you're logical, it's like, come on, like mind muscle means a lot. Like I've never seen a fantastic bodybuilder who said mind muscle doesn't mean shit. I mean, look at someone like Ty Green, like he talks about it for hours, and he's got just such a detailed, crazy physique. There's tons of examples like that. So I would say it's definitely underrated now. It seems to be coming back a little bit. I hope I'm partly a little bit responsible for that, but right now, definitely underrated.
Yeah, I would agree. I feel like if you don't have any connection with the muscle, then how can you be sure that you're training it effectively?
Well, yeah, exactly. I give the example because, like I said, I'm kind of like half and half. I do like half like lifestyle, like half gym stuff, lifestyle or bodybuilders, and then I do like half just rehab, like PT stuff. And it's like if I have a PT client and I'm trying to reposition them, I need them like very specifically to feel the exact like fibers I need them to feel, and I can reposition them. I can see afterwards, oh, okay, we've got range of motion. The pelvis is this way. Like they can do the same motion that looks perfect, and if they don't feel it, I don't get the test results. Like I don't see it. So it's like in that instance, like it means something. So it definitely means something in the context of working out and aesthetics for sure.
Yeah, it's
It's like
obvious.
it's like I have to be like, do you feel your adductor? Like, yeah, like what part? Oh, it's kind of like in the middle. I was like, no, I need you to feel the ischiocondylar, like right up in your junk. You need to feel the higher, and like, okay, now I feel, and then they'll reposition. It's like that specific.
Yeah, that's funny. Yeah, because I know when I was like benching my heaviest, my chest wasn't growing, just my triceps kept growing. And I was like, interesting. I guess I need to bench more. And that was obviously not the solution.
You know, yeah, I love what GVS said about that, like weak body parts. Is like, you know, doing more of what you're already doing is probably just more shit on top of shit. So you just got a bigger pile of shit. So probably not the solution.
Yeah, it's interesting. Even like when I was talking about doing dips, like there's a certain part of the range of motion where it's like the tension fully moves over to my triceps. So I'm trying to just not do that range of motion if I'm trying to work on my chest. I'm like, I don't need to do that last
Yeah.
part there, or just focus on it because then it's taking over. I want to just kind of keep the tension on my chest. All right, next
Yeah,
one. Sorry, go
I
ahead.
don't do dips anymore, but that was the main move I did for chest for probably like 4 or 5 years, I would say.
Okay, yeah, that's my main movement, but I may attempt to go back to pressing. All right, next one here, deloading.
Um, for like the gin pop, like for my clients, like we don't fucking deload. It's like life will make you deload. If you're like really about it and this is your life and you're like a competitor or you train like a competitor, I still am not a big fan of like scheduling deloads necessarily, unless you want to schedule it for something like you go on a vacation. That's great, like plan it out like that. But in general, for most people, when they think they need a deload, they just need a day or two off. You know, a lot of times it's like mental. And if it doesn't feel like that, then take more. Like that's fine. I'm not against taking 2 weeks off if you fucking just want to take off. Like you'll be fine if you feel like you need 2 weeks off mentally, even if it's not 100% physically. You'll probably come back better. But in general, I don't like deloads at all. Like I said, for strength purposes, obviously you have some deloads in there because you're trying to hit certain numbers in cycling. But I mean, what I'll do typically if I'm gonna like deload is like, to me, deloading just means taking away volume and doing less. And like for me, that's really like a mental thing, because like if I need to like deload my body joint wise, like you can shift your emphasis and focus on that a little bit and still get time in the gym. You don't have to like take off. So something that I'll do, I'll make a video about it soon, is like like during a period where you're not really trying to gain crazy size, whether you're maintaining, or you know, you can even make this a strength period too, because it really doesn't take a lot of external volume to push up your strength. But I like to throw in like I don't know, every like 4 to 6 months, I might do 4 to 6 weeks of just like more internal strength training, where we're putting a lot of the focus on the connective tissue, your joints, kind of like your load bearing capacity, things besides your muscles. Bodybuilders, they really only train their muscles. I mean, we're not doing anything explosive, any plyometric. We're not doing a lot of rapid deceleration. So we got really good control of our muscles, and they're really built out to control motion. But really, your fascia and your bones and things, they actually do a lot of that too. And I don't want to lose that ability. And I think that there's benefits to just as a bodybuilder and like not getting too over specified. So I'll take like 4 to 6 weeks where maybe instead of doing a normal bro split, I switch to like a push pull legs, and I'll do probably like 3 to 4 what you call like external exercises, much less volume. A lot of times I'll use a technique that they call continuous zone loading, where you're just kind of like seeking out different lines of tension throughout the rep. So I've got a couple examples on my Instagram. One of them I'm doing like a fly, and I'm doing like kind of like partials and working my way down, which makes it a little bit more lengthened. It makes it, when you're going like lengthened, like from short to lengthen range, it makes a little more connective tissue bias than muscle. Still getting tons of muscle. Sometimes I'll do a full range of motion on it, and you're just changing little things up and just squeezing everything you can out of every line of tension. So if there's something that's easy, you get a little more out of it. And I'll do biceps too, and it's just elbow flexion. I'll just change how I'm flexing, and you might only do 1 or 2 sets of that because you're getting so many different lines of tension. And that might be how I train externally. I might do like one traditional strength focus thing, like 4 to 6 reps while I'm doing this, because it is helpful to train your strength, like go a little heavier when you're training the connective tissue. There's a neural component to doing this type of stuff that makes you a little stronger. So I kind of like to use that. But then the rest of the whole workout before that will be all joint specific stuff, whether it's isometrics, maybe it's like slow negatives. I do a lot of really overloaded negatives for joint work and hips and shoulders. What's
Would
that?
you consider any of that to be mobility work, like in a
Yeah,
non-training
yeah,
sense?
yeah. I would say, I mean, mobility work is just strength training in ranges that you don't have the best control of. To me, like, there's no such thing as like static stretching, really. I mean, even if you think you're static stretching, you're still like applying a little bit of force. So, yeah. So I think one of the most underrated things that people can do for mobility, if you have no idea about any of the expansion compression stuff, like if you just added some in-range isometrics, like probably bandit, like you would notice such a big difference. You can literally feel like on yourself, like if you're like you go into a stretch, you can feel like amount of tension and tautness that should be like at full range. It might be like right away. And after just doing some in-range isometrics, you can literally feel like, oh wow, now I don't feel that same kind of tightness until I'm actually in a full stretch position. So these are things I used to think about and do just like as a bro before I understood what was going on. But yeah, I really like to do the direct joint capsule work. I like to do the ballistic isometrics as well, where you're at like a lengthened range and you're just really firing really hard from there. So, and I also do some slow twitch muscle fiber during this time too, because I feel like that's something that could potentially have some benefits that bodybuilders totally overlook. I know Dr. Squat, Fred Hatfield was big on it way back in the day, and I think there's some benefits. It doesn't make up the majority of your size at all, but I think if you train those, it might be able to maybe fatigue the bigger muscle fibers longer, possibly. I don't know, but I think there's some benefits to that. So I'll take 4 or 6 weeks out and just trade out like half my volume for that kind of stuff. It's called like mainly from the internal strength model from FRC. I follow a lot of that. I have a lot of that stuff on my Instagram.
Cool. All right, last one here for overrated, underrated lateral raises.
Like just normal, the dumbbell.
Whichever method you want it, you can talk through it.
Well, because I feel like, I mean, I did the critique on Joe, and like him and a lot of people don't like the dumbbell lateral raise. They love the cuffed one on your back. So it's like for me, when the reason they don't like the standing lateral raise is because the resistance curve, right, it's all heavy at the top. It's pretty light at the bottom. But like I mean, just do it all. I mean, I think there's benefits to doing it in the hardest fucking place. I like to do 1 1/4s. I'll do isometrics from there and hold it. And like that might not be optimal in according to like science, but I think there's a lot of benefits to isometrics. There's a lot of benefits to working the shortened range of motion that a lot of people kind of shit on or like don't think about. I mean, I don't think there's any benefit to not working like the hardest range of motion. I know a lot of people will do like lengthened partials, and sometimes it's in a range where they're missing the hardest part. I'm like, well, maybe like drop set to lengthen partials. But yeah, I mean, I think laterals, I don't know how are they rated. I don't know. I know dumbbells I feel like are a little underrated right now. And maybe the cable is a little bit overrated. I think with the cables, the lying down cross, and some people, it's easier for them to like compress and kind of get their shoulder girdle involved in the actual movement than if you like kind of hang out in front of yourself with some dumbbells. But if you got good form, they're all good. I like every kind of raise. I do like 12 variations every shoulder workout.
Yeah, so I use cables is like what I track. So I track like with cables, but then a lot of the times I'll just put on like a 5-minute song and just grab the dumbbells and just do every range of motion until the song's
Exactly.
over. And I know that's not like
Exactly.
measured or whatever. I'm like, I'm just gonna do lateral raises until this song's over and take like 3-second breaks between like when I need to and just
Yeah, it's like
power
what I was
through it.
talking about, right? You're changing the different ranges of motion and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's
sometimes it's
basically.
just the bottom, sometimes it's the top, sometimes it's full. Like it's cool, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like to do like, I mean, I do a lot of cable supersets. I really like cables to go from shortened to lengthened range bias, like supersetting those. I think people are afraid of superset now. I don't know what the fuck like happened to everybody in the workout world. It used to be so hardcore, and now it's like, don't let your body be unstable and like have everything fucking strapped and be like have no fatigue at all. So yeah, I like to set it up where it's like a little higher so you can kind of get that lengthen range, maybe like waist height, and then just at the bottom, and I don't cross at the bottom, and I'll hit that shorten range. I throw those back to back a lot.
You ever do it behind your back or do you feel like that's more worked
Sometimes.
out? Yeah.
Yeah. I go behind the back a lot. Like a lot of times when I have my clients go behind the back, just sometimes I have to have them go one arm. They just because
I do
they
one
get
arm.
like
Yeah.
they get too
Yeah.
compressed, and then you just got to make sure you're in and like you're not compressed right here. So whatever position, like some people can go straight on, some people need to like turn a little bit more.
I see.
I mean, some people need to go a little straight on, some people can be totally turned and be all good. But yeah, I like behind the back.
Cool. All right. So next, you've spoken about dealing with your own postural issues and injuries over the years, including asymmetry and injuries back when you played football. You literally had a video called Leg Day for the Crook Bodybuilder. So with that being said, what's your Mount Rushmore, your top 4 exercises for the crooked lifter who wants bigger legs?
Um, Well, if you're crooked, most of the time you're going to be crooked the way I am. So I'm going to have to assume that you're in what we call like a left AIC, right BC pattern. And it is possible to be crooked the other way, but not usually from like workout people. If you're working out producing force, you tend to either be stuck in like no man's land and be very bilaterally kind of fucked up, or you're like me where you got one side that's really dominant. So the big four, and I'm sorry, you were saying what were these positional drills or exercises? What was the for?
Exercises for someone who wants bigger legs.
For bigger legs. Okay. Well, a lot of times with the presentation like this, the legs will be asymmetrical, right? Like you'll see it can vary because there's a little different. Like sometimes people's right leg just gets overdeveloped because they're more on it. But in general, what you typically see is the right adductor is pretty much universally going to be more overdeveloped. And that's just because of how it's positioned, because the pelvis is turned to the right a little bit. It's like leverage to be like way concentrically oriented. It's leverage to take a lot of load. Whereas like the left side is kind of like what we would call eccentrically oriented. It's not really as good at producing force. It's better at yielding and absorbing force. So a lot of times on the left leg, what you'll see, especially if you're in a left AIC, because the femur starts to really get externally rotated, this left vastus lateralis, the sweep, the meat of your leg, right? That becomes leveraged to be like an internal rotator and just gets leveraged in a position to take a lot of the load. So a lot of times you'll see, and you can look at like Jay, I mean, there's tons of bodybuilders. If you think about it, like once you know it, you'll see it everywhere, but you'll see like a really overdeveloped left vastus lateralis pretty often and a really overdeveloped right adductor. And so, yeah, so what you got to do, like essentially what happens if you're doing a bilateral move and your feet are like set up equal and you look like you're symmetrical, you're not, because you got asymmetries. Like your straight would be like one foot turned out that way and your pelvis turned a little bit. So like, because your pelvis is already turned away. So you're going to develop that way. So I would say doing like, without going deep into the stuff yet, I would say just doing unilateral work. If you do notice you have these kind of asymmetries, would be really good because they don't just help you see. Like most people will see as soon as they go up on a Bulgarian or like a split squat or something, like, well, fuck, this one side feels way wonky. And so like, if you can kind of be aware of it, a lot of times you can make it a little bit better, like just by control, sometimes not. But as far as like building up size, so like I said, first thing you want to do is make sure your sacrum is not turned to the right, which it's going to be if you're crooked. So I would say as far as a leg movement to get it off to the left, something really good. That's probably my go-to move. If I program for you, there's 1,000% chance you've seen this. I have it in every single person's. It's just the step down on the rack. You probably saw that if you saw that video. So especially for like the left side, so you're holding on to the squat rack. You're on a very small step. You're not squatting. You're not stepping deep off of it, but you're holding that squat rack. You're engaging your left abs. That's a big problem with the people that are crooked like me. Is our left abs are so much less engaged than our right.
I'm crooked too, so yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be like me, right? You're gonna be in that. You're kind of narrow too. So you want to keep those left abs on. Go contralateral. Have a weight in the right hand. Your left foot's up on the step. Got to make sure that left foot is straight. Like a lot of people don't know what straight is unless like they look at it and like really look at it. I'll turn somebody straight and they're like, "I'm so pigeon." I'm like, "No, you're not even straight. I have you straighter." And so what you got to do is you're gonna go down on the step down. I mean, you can watch the video because there's some more technical stuff, but if you're going to go down, just keep weight on the left inner heel, reach towards that foot with the weight. I usually use a kettlebell, but whatever, reach towards like the big toe. Just go to like a 60 degree of a squat. So you got one leg, your right leg is like right next to you off the side of the box. It's not behind you. It's like right next to you. And you're letting yourself turn into that left side a little bit. You need to actually feel a little bit of that pelvis turn into that left hip. And once you've had like a turn into your left hip, like where you're actually getting IR, like you'll be able to recreate that, but it's so hard to get at first because what's going to happen is as you're trying to turn into that left side, your butt's just going to rotate with you. So you got to keep pressure on that inner heel and make sure your butt like doesn't move. It's got to be like straight behind you. Don't let it turn to the side. So you're going to reach towards that heel and just drop, like I said, 60 degrees. And I would just hold that and I would breathe. You should feel hamstring attachment and you should feel a little adductor if you're in there right. And so your shin will be forward, but you just don't want it to be so crazy far forward. And you just got to be able to breathe. Like, don't hold your breath. That's the thing. Like sometimes people get in these hard positions, but then they don't breathe. So you don't own them. You don't create the expansion. When you're in those hard positions, now you're in a position to push air where it needs to go. So you got to fucking breathe. So a lot of times people are holding the breath, but it makes it harder. So I just have them hold that for like 3 to 4 seconds, maybe do like 3 or 4 reps. And then a lot of times I'll test them afterwards. So like a good test you could do, which I mean, let me know if this is too boring, but a good test you could do is just like a hip flexion test on a table. So if I just push somebody's knee to their chest, or you could pull your own knee to your chest, if the right knee is just stuck as shit and the left goes pretty good, probably means your sacrum doesn't have a very easy time turning to the left, because it's going to turn to the right. It's already there. So that's why a lot of times we have way better hip flexion on the left if it's bent knee. And so after doing that test, we're working the left leg. We know the left leg's the one under load, but you go do a right leg hip flexion test, and then wow, like now I've got full range of motion because the sacrum's turning. So it's like you didn't even touch that leg. We just changed the shape and got an outcome. So that's something that in general, I just like as a bigger concept, if I wish a lot of people could understand, is like how much the shape influences everything. Like we talk about the ribs and the pecs, but also just like injuries and pain. Like I've been working on this scrolling through IG video. It's fucking taking so long. These edits, so it's been like 3 or 4 days, and that's what fucks me up is sitting and editing. Like I'm fine in the gym and I'm fine in daily life, but I've been like super crooked, and I was getting like left lower back pain. Like my SI joint yesterday was hurting. I was getting pain in between my scapula on the right side, and like old me would have been like, okay, let's like stretch this left back, let's stretch this lat. I just went and I opened up my right rib cage and did some sideline breathing for like a minute and a half, and then both of those went away because the shape influenced that. And like sometimes you do have to go directly there, but when you know your things like I do, like my specific issues, like you can just get it rid of it so quick, where I would have spent like fucking 2 or 3 days to get like a tiny bit of relief. So just think about the shape influences everything. And if you can find how your shape is fucked up, that's kind of like a cheat code because you can fix it. So that step down is really good. I can include that in the warm up. If you wanted to do it on the right side, you could. You would probably stay ipsilateral with the weight. I wouldn't bring it across the body, and I would probably bring the left foot a little bit backwards instead of being right next to it, because we don't want to like reshift you right back to that right side real hard. So a lot of times when we're working our right leg, especially if it's like split squats or single leg stuff, if you're crooked like us, like you got to be aware of that right hip, that right femur just jamming into your side. You don't want it to like overturn you. Where we're trying to get that turn on the left, you almost got to be aware and like apply like an isometric force on the right to prevent that. So that's just something to be aware of. And I even think about that like when I'm on a hack squat, when I'm going real heavy, like I know my left knee's going to want to go forward, my right knee's going to want to shift back. So I'm applying just an isometric force. I'm not moving, but I'm applying that the whole time so I don't go into that. And so you got your sacrum shifted with that move. That's a good start. Depending on what your specific issue is, I probably would either do some kind of like a hinge or a squat pattern as like a hold for a warm up. And that would be either just holding like an actual like stiff leg deadlift and breathing through that open internal rotated position, just open up your pelvis, or it'd be like holding on a Smith squat machine with a ball between your knees, like at 90 degrees, and just breathing through there. So those would be like my two kind of warm ups. One thing to kind of get your hips where you need to be, and one bilateral move to kind of sync it together. Then the main exercises would be like I talk about the hack for quads, at least if we're talking about quads, just because there's no other way like to really drive us good tension on your quads with free weight as a hack, because you can really focus on the torso upright. You can really focus on the foot contacts, which if you saw my quad video, like the foot contacts are what's going to drive tension to your quads. You'll feel way more. So what you got to do on like a hack squat, any quad pattern that you're trying to bias your quads on, like any squat pattern, you got to have internal rotation in the beginning, because unless we're going like ass to the ground, which again, we wouldn't do that for quads, it's going to be an internal rotation bias exercise. So we want to drive as much internal rotation as possible. So say I go to a hack squat, I'm going to make sure if we're crooked, we got to feel those SI joints even. That's another reason I really like the hack squat. It gives you a reference point, right? If we're free weighting, it's easier to kind of lose it. So make sure you feel your left SI joints even. And sometimes that means like almost pushing into the left side a little bit to balance it out. And so as soon as I start my descent, I'm letting my femurs, my front pockets, ever so slightly turn in. It's not much at all. It's just like the littlest little bit. And at the beginning, I'm really focused on feeling that initial heel contact. As soon as I start the descent, I want to feel like the inner heel. And as I'm going down, if we can think about like, again, like let's keep it simple, but if we could, because really what we're doing is we're trying to drive as much what's called mid propulsion as possible. That's the part of the gait cycle where your quads produce the most force out of the whole gait cycle, and it's a very IR biased position. So we're kind of mimicking that in a squat pattern to drive tension to the quad. So we want the tension to start on your heels. Then as soon as you start to go down, it shifts from middle heel to inner heel. And as you're going further in your descent, you start getting on that inner heel and what we call like the first med head, the kind of pad underneath your big toe. And then as you continue to get towards the bottom, now we're really driving those knees forward. We already have that internal rotation. So you really don't like, it's not like you pick up a lot more as you go, kind of like a hinge you kind of pick up a lot more. This I think about just like maintaining that as you're going down and not letting it ER. And so as you get in the bottom, you're going to push those knees as far in front of your feet as you can go before your heels want to come up. And so at that point, you almost might even start to feel like a flattening of the arch. And that's when if you got the ankle mobility, that's where you would be. So you're coming up from there. So always, if you're keeping it on quads, you're not gonna be able to go below 100 degrees. You probably won't go much below like 90.
Okay.
And then just make sure that your heels don't come up. There are, I mean, unless you're doing something totally different. I think there is some benefits doing heels elevated stuff, but for like squat pattern on the hack, that'd be it. And then the other leg thing, you said legs in general or quads?
Legs in general. Yeah.
Legs in general. I would say some kind of sumo variation. Like a lot of people kind of spam the AD duction machine, like that's fine. But like for me, like my legs blew up in size when I just added so much adductor to me. And I think sumos, especially if you got a belt squat, like I like the Rhino, especially the Rogue Rhino, but any kind of a sumo. And then the thing with the sumo is you still got to keep the principles that we talked about. Like I see a lot of, it's usually I just see girls. I think of sumos, I think of girls because they just do all external rotation for their ass. Like that's it. And so they'll be like on the outside of the feet. If you're doing a sumo, just make sure you still have those inner contact points, the first med head in your inner heel, but we're rotating out the knees, but not rolling out the feet. So we're creating like a lateral force production through internal rotation. And so yeah, sumos for adductors and just general size. I think those are probably the
how about stuff like leg extension machine or seated or lying down hamstring curls? Like, are those acceptable machines to use, or are they?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. I was close to saying a hamstring curl. I was for the last one. I was trying to think about it, but yeah. I mean, I love the seated hamstring curl, especially. I use that with a lot of clients because, like, I mean, great that you brought it up, right? If you're crooked like us, what I usually have them do, at least for the first set, is do a left hip shift. So sometimes they might have a ball between their knees. You don't need to use a ball though. You can just pull that left knee very slightly back, and it's got to be subtle. Again, a lot of people, the shit is so subtle. People will like do it and they're like hip hike and they're like, okay, I'm doing this. Like, just everything is just barely a little bit. So you're just gonna barely pull that back, and then you should actually be in a better position if you think about what's happening in the pelvis, right? So if you're crooked like us, you can kind of think we just kind of start like that, and then we're turned in here. So this side of our hip is really forward. If I am sitting like right here and I shift that back, right, that squares me up, and now you'll be able to fire these left upper hamstring fibers, which are going to be really big in pulling that left side posteriorly and giving you a lot more neutral base. So I'll have them warm up like the first or two sets, or even if they're really crooked as fuck, I'll just have them do all of them like that. But I like that a lot. I like the line one too. It's just, for what I do, a lot of people tend to overdo their back because I just deal with so many fucked up people. So I think that's fine. You just got to be aware of when you are getting your back involved, and if that's something you want to do, it's fine. Just know you might have to counter that with something. And then leg extensions. What's that?
I was gonna say, is this one of the reasons why you get like people get like knee issues or knee pain because maybe one knee's in front of the other type of thing?
Yeah, well, that was my whole thing. My whole life was my left knee. Like you said,
yeah, my right knee, and sometimes my knee hurts sometimes when I do leg extensions, and I'm like, I feel like I'm straight, and then I'll watch the video, and I'll be like, oh, I'm not.
So on the right side, is it like just patellofemoral, like around the center, or where is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So like that's usually what you get. And sometimes you get medial on the right, but like on the left, it'll be lateral typically if you fall into our pattern. So mine was left lateral knee pain, and yeah, like it was something that like fucked me up on everything. And as soon as I learned how to hip shift, like one time, it fixed it. And so I was like, holy shit, this shit is amazing. So yeah, like if you're crooked, like I said, you're going to wear uneven. It's like a car, right? Like you want to have the tires bounce. You don't want to wear unevenly on one side. And then like for the leg extensions, something I talk about a lot, and I've had Eric Seifert on the podcast a lot, who talks about this a lot too, is the just the counter force. Like as you're every move should have counter force, but the leg extension is kind of the easiest. Is like as you're lifting it up, just applying force with your hamstrings into the pad downward, kind of pairing the knee extension with hip extension, which is natural part of like movement, and that makes it so much harder. Like you'll just direct tension so much better there.
Sweet. All right, I'm gonna throw out some quotes now that you've said in the past. Just give me your first take on it here.
Okay.
All right, first one here is: lab studies sometimes fail to capture real world complexity, noting, for example, that muscle soreness or pump can be meaningful feedback even if it's not scientifically validated.
Yeah, I mean, like I fucking hate studies. Like, how are they going to quantify how much pump you have? You know, or like, it's like I feel like it's just. So I got really big into, you know, my background is finance and stuff, and we were doing like equity evaluations, and I'm just remember I'm like, I could just change one thing, and like this would change the whole evaluation a little bit. Like it's just
Listen,
we're just kind of fucking guessing. Like it's just, I mean, somewhat of an educated guess, but like if we look at the stock 6 months from now, it'll fucking say something totally fucking
I
different.
I worked with like proper quant data scientists at Google, and the product managers would kind of get them to make slight changes so they could get their projects approved, right? So I'm not suggesting that's what's happening, but if the data is not perfect, if every variable isn't accounted for, if there's any bias, like things can get strange real quick. So it's just something to be careful with. And then I also don't think just because something's not validated that it's invalidated. Like there's a
Yeah,
difference.
big difference.
There's something in between there, right? Where it's like, okay, just because it's not validated doesn't mean that we shouldn't consider it because there's no like research on it yet.
Yeah, and like I mean, the whole exercise science field as a whole, like I think is kind of fucking ridiculous. I think if like I get it if it's just marketing purposes, but if you actually have a PhD in exercise science, you make fucking people in your everyday life call you doctor. I hope people don't actually do that because that is the like shittiest field that you could do because like everything is like you can't control any of the variables like at all really. Like what are you going to do if you're checking like muscle growth or muscle activation on something? Because like say you're doing one of the quad activation studies, like I know how to squat with internal rotation and drive force in my quad. Somebody else might only know how to load their ass and do it a specific way, and even if you like tell them to do it a way, it might look a certain way, but you can't see the subtle things that are happening. So it's like what they're producing is not what I'm producing. You know, I've got a little baby. I don't fucking sleep. So it's like my size might change a little different. So in general, it's hard for me to get a lot of validity and like benefit from any exercise science, really.
Especially if your dissertation is on Division I athletes, and that makes you the
Dude,
authority on everything.
dude,
You
I
know,
have someone sent me his actual full paper. They were like, because I had tried to get it originally and I couldn't get it. Like it was restricted. And the guy was like, I'm a professor here at whatever school it was. He goes, I looked at it. He's like, I'll send it to you. Like, they'll have a good laugh. And like, yeah, I mean, it's
basic.
pretty wild. It's pretty
Yeah,
wild that like, yeah, this is I mean, like, at least now there's some, you know, there's some criticism, but it's pretty wild for like years. Like that was the highest authority
it's
just because he spent time in school to get that shitty degree with that shitty thesis. You know?
yeah, it's social proof, right? You're using a credential for social proof. Like it's a good marketing move.
I know he should have just never competed and like had no social proof against himself to
Yeah,
not step on stage.
yeah. But I don't think it matters, right? Because
Well, that was a big. I mean, that's one of the big things where I see that all the time. Like people are like, I was listening to Dr. Mike, and then you know I saw how shitty he looked on stage. Can't even get his shit together. He looks like shit. So I started thinking like he probably doesn't know his shit. So it's like
okay.
I think if he just didn't like step on stage, he probably would have kept a lot more of his credibility.
Yeah, fair enough. All right, so here's a funny one here. You've called Dr. Mike the stretch messiah and said giving advice on biomechanics is like me giving advice on how to avoid mentally unstable chicks.
Oh, you got to see the next scrolling through IG I'm editing right now. It plays into this exactly. Oh, yeah. I will say this: like, I like to live dangerously, and I feel like I need to be on my toes, and I need to have a little bit of threat and violence from my significant other, and she definitely checks those boxes. I've been with really like great girls and had great relationships, but it just was like a little boring. I don't know why. Like I don't like unnecessary drama. I kind of fuck around, obviously, but I definitely like am attracted to the crazy, and I recognize it at least. Like if it's too crazy, I'm not into it. I got to find like just the right crazy, like I've got now.
I think there's like an How I Met Your Mother episode. It's like the something Mendoza scale. It's like a crazy hot
The crazy
scale.
hot scale.
And you got yeah, right. So yeah,
I saw that. I saw it on something before. Yeah, I mean, but the thing for me is like the crazy can make you hotter. If it's the right kind of crazy.
um, fact or fiction? You used to train with 4 kids after football practice, and they called you Coach Warren, even though they were older than you.
Oh man, how deep was that? What was that from? You are deeply researched, man. Yeah, that is actually what started me thinking like maybe I should like I mean back then there wasn't like a training industry. So this was 2003 when I was a junior in high school. And our coaches I've been really into working out since I was like 14, but especially since I was 16 and I could drive. Like I had a good physique at 16. Like I was the shit in junior. I was like in senior in high school. And like I knew, I mean, thank God there were the forums there. And a little detour real quick, but it's like I feel so lucky that I came up when I did, because the forums, I feel like, we're such a better source to learn from than the shit people have now, TikTok and everything, because it's just so inundated. There's so much information out there, and it's hard to like sort through what's good or bad. Whereas at the forums back in the like late 90s, early 2000s, like you could tell what was good or bad. It sorted itself out through there. And so I really learned a lot from there. And I think I was doing maybe DC training at the time. I can't remember what exactly my routine was, but I was in football and we were in our off-season program, and they just had us do the same 4 exercises Monday through Friday, like no days off, nothing. Like it wasn't like, Russian volume style. We weren't getting acclimated to it. They were having us do like bodybuilder style, like volume in there. I mean, we're doing incline press 5 days a week. It's like, come on. So I was like really in good shape, and I wouldn't do it. I would just have the bar, and the coaches would be like, Warren, what the fuck, dude? Like we have your numbers. We know what you can lift. Like, what are you doing? I was like, I'm just gonna come after you. Guys are fucking up my shit. And like a couple of the guys were like, okay, well, if you're gonna come after, let's come do what you're doing. And so like I talked to them. I was like, dude, these guys don't know anything. You have shitty strength coaches in high school, like really shitty. In fact, the one time the year before, I actually had a amazing one who's in the NFL right now. And it was just so different. It was just like
Wow.
whole nother level. He was only out of school for a year. He fucking left. But yeah, so I'm telling these guys don't know shit. I was like, look at them, they all look like shit. And I was like, I'll show you what I do. And so there's 4 guys, and one in particular, Gary. He was like our middle linebacker, pretty stout dude. And we would go after. We did like a couple football drills too. We would like, I would kind of help them. We would do a couple things, but then we just switched just into working out. And like they fucking loved it, because they had never done anything besides, the 4 moves we did in football. They had never worked out like a bodybuilder and like felt their muscles and stuff. So we would just work out. I'd take them through what I would do, and they would all call me Coach Warren. And I actually skipped a grade, so I was 2 years younger than all these guys. So they're all like 18, I'm 16, and like, oh, all right, Coach Warren. I'm like, this is fun. Like, this is cool. I got people listening to me, and like they're getting improvements. I can see the results. Like, this is cool. I never like thought about it that much, like as a career, but I did talk to that.
But you did it naturally, like it clicked, right? You're like,
Yeah, it was just right away. I was like,
Yeah.
yeah, because so much of this field is intuitive. Like you got to have a knowledge base, but there was things that I saw and understood kinesthetically that I didn't understand, like maybe like mentally yet. But yeah, it definitely came natural.
And did you notice it during that time? Like it didn't click with the other guys the same way?
Yeah. I was just saying, like, I'm like, how do you not tell that this is fucking retarded, bro? I'm like, do you not like feel your body? I was like, I mean, you're an athlete. Like, I know you're connected, but yeah, I don't know. I think for a lot of people it is intuitive, and then for some people it's just not at all.
You should put grade skipper in your bio. It'll give you social clout.
I know, that's what I said on one of the videos I made.
You guys don't think I'm smart, but I'm a grade skipper. Did you skip a grade?
Dude.
Doctor?
Yeah, I graduated college at 20, bro. What about you?
Oh man. All right. So I'm going to ask you a question that I've heard you ask and that I actually love. And it's, are there any beliefs that you'd have that go against conventional wisdom, or anything you believe in your heart or think that's true that science can't prove?
Yeah, I love that question. I'm going to start asking that of most of my guests. Well, I do think that, like I mentioned briefly earlier, that there's some benefits to like shortened range of motion that I feel like science can't really prove. I think that potentially like getting a hard squeeze and really, getting a lot out of the contraction where you can see all the details occurring, like a leg extension. Like I think that can bring out more details. Like I think it's not unrealistic to say if I do full range of motion and get the full shortened range on a leg extension, I might have a little more details than if I just did 3/4 reps. I don't know. Science can't prove that. That's what bodybuilders been saying forever. That's what I notice and I feel a big difference in. When I squeeze those and make them come out, they come out more. So I think the shortened range training is a big one. I also think, like we talked about, the mind muscle is a pretty big one. I mean, something that I think that is pretty like controversial. I don't think anyone really agrees with me on this, probably, because I really don't think that there's like, I don't think you can injure yourself if you're using the right technique. And I think it always comes down to a fault in the system that makes your technique go off. Like if you're using your body the relative motion the way it's supposed to, it's like you just stop once you can't do that anymore. Like for me, my failure is, okay, now I can't keep things moving. I'm trying to lock things up. Like that's it. And that's me shaking and squeezing the shit out of it. Like some people can't quite get there. But I think that if you are aware of that and you stop that before you get to that compensatory pattern, like I don't think you can overtrain. You're just going to be able to do less and less. Like you're not going to hurt yourself because you did that extra rep. It's like I did that extra rep kind of fucked up. I did that when I turned just a little tiny bit. Like I thought I was really perfect, but I did suddenly something wrong. So it's like I haven't had an injury in the four years that I've known this shit, really, besides my fucking elbow for making fun of one of my guys. I don't know if you saw that. I was making fun of Judd Linehard on my scrolling through IG, and I was doing some stupid shit and I fucked up my elbow. So I was like, that's the only thing I've had. And I'm older now. I'm 30, about to be 38 next week. So it's like injury is supposed to get worse as you get older. But I really think if you're in tune with your body and you understand like how like the compression expansion cycle is supposed to work, you really can't get injured unless some freak happens or you fuck yourself up. Like good mechanics don't fuck you up. It's not a load management thing.
Yeah. So, you said you're going through like, it's better to go through the entire range of motion and go through the toughest range of motion, which a lot of times is the short end. So something that I have some difficulty sometimes thinking through is like, okay, if I go through the full range of motion and the shorten, I probably am not pushing myself to its capacity in the other ranges of motion. So I think like, should I have a smaller range of motion and then maybe just do a different exercise, or do that exercise just in the shortened range of motion and do partials in the shortened range of motion? Do you have any thoughts on that?
Like what exercise, for example?
Let's say preacher curl. Okay. So if I'm doing preacher curl, I'm going to like here. If I go to here, I probably could do less weight. So then I might just do this, and then I might do some sets just at the top with less weight.
Where you're still keeping tension at the top, right? You're not talking about going to that point where you're losing tension.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like to do drop sets to lengthen partials, like without, like I said, without, like some people like on the lat pull down or something, they might like really overload that lengthen range. Or I don't really see that often on a preacher curl, but I know some people do like overload that lengthen range, which that's a little harder there. So I like to do drop sets at lengthen range. If I was going to try to do like a lengthen range on a curl, I probably wouldn't use a preacher curl personally. I don't love the elbow like setup for it. It's fine. People love it. It's a good stretch position, but I do like to really overload the shorten range. So what I would probably do, and what I have done a lot, is I'll kind of do a drop set, but I'll do a partial, like I might get like a 50 and just do that shorten range where I can, keep it controlled, get a little heavier. And then I'll drop to like a 30 and I'll go back to full range, but I'm going to really like feel that bottom range. That's usually how I do that. But I do everything. Sometimes I will just fuck around with the lengthen range on a totally different exercise or something.
I think maybe like lateral raises might be a better example, actually, where the shorten range is tougher.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. Kind of like a lat pull down. Like I'll do the full range until I can't, and then I'll do some partials. Like, I mean, I don't know. Is it better to do heavier partials and get more out of the length of range? Like for me, I'll just.
Okay, so you're saying you do the full range of motion, and then you're probably failing at the shortened position, and then you'll just throw in some partials in the lengthen.
Yeah, I mean, and for shoulders especially, like you can really like do some cheat sets without losing your stack. Like the problem, like I love cheating, but you don't want to like throw your whole fucking system off to orient to get the weight up. Like I'll keep a stack and just use a little bit of leg. So maybe I am kind of like pounding through that upper range, but not as controlled. Like I'll control it more down. Or like I said, I mean, I usually will always do a kind of more lengthened bias move too. So I'll still probably do that, the drop set or the failure to partials, but then I'll still end up doing a cable that's a little bit more lengthened bias too.
Cool. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to finish today off by throwing some pictures on the screen and tell me the first thing that comes to mind. I already showed you one of them, so I'll let you maybe talk through this in more detail if you want.
Yeah. So this was before my first bodybuilding show. I was in class. No, was this classic? No, this was my first bodybuilding show. Yeah, I had grown out of classic a little bit. And my wife at the time, she got me the 1.5-hour session with Frank Zane, who's down south from me. I'm in Newport Beach, so he was about 1.5 hours south, which was awesome. I've always had a picture. This is the first time in my life I haven't had a picture of Frank Zane like signed up at my place. I fucking broke. But yeah, I've been a huge Frank Zane fan my whole life. Like I was always more like into aesthetics and being lean and stuff. I was trying to do classic physique. I couldn't make the weight class with my structure. So I suck at posing, and it was fucking terrible. And she surprised me with this because she knows I suck, and he was offering posing, and he's the best ever. So I was like, this is fucking awesome. So I went and met him at his place. he has like a whole like separate kind of like back house thing for his gym. It's really interesting. He's got like every single machine, like everything that's like pin loaded, he has like a little apparatus that has banded tension on it. So it's like it always adds tension on every single move you have. So I don't know if that's good to do on every single thing, but it's cool. And so we sat down. He came up with my entire posing routine. You know, we
Wow.
looked at my physique. We went through everything. I mean, he wrote it out. I still have the piece of paper that he wrote. It's like every single move. And then we just sat down. And I think, you know, I've always been really like I don't know, like attuned to the elderly population. Like I really spent a lot of time with my great grandma, and my grandparents. Like we were all really close. So
Awesome.
I don't know. I just vibe with old people really good. I got some old clients. And so I think part of it is because I just respect them and respect their view and the history that they've been through so much. So we were just kind of talking. I think he was like, oh, okay. Cause I was young here. I must have been 28, 29. And so he's like, okay, here's this youngish kid who knows all about my era and is asking me all these questions. Like, I think, you know, he respected that. So yeah, we talked a lot. I asked him, how do you feel that you are kind of like the face of the physique division? Like you're like the reason they created. Like, does that make you happy? He's like, no, I fucking hate that. He's like, they should definitely show their legs. He's like, this, I would never go anywhere in board stores. I think that's the stupidest division, which that's pretty much the attitude for all the, I mean, I think it's stupid too, but especially the old school guys. So that was funny. And then we sat and I talked to him about old time cycles. He talked to me about those a little bit. I asked him some questions I had just about like Lou. I always heard like Lou was a total prick. And I asked him like, how was he? He goes, yeah. He goes, you know, but who was, well, RIP, but he's like, you know, who was the biggest dick? He's like, Franco, which
Really?
I thought they were tight. Like I had heard that they were cool. There's some pictures of them together, but he fucking hated Franco for whatever reason.
Interesting.
He said Franco was like a piece of shit. He's like, he would have been nothing without Arnold. Like seemed like there was definitely some shit there. I don't know what
something
it was.
happened there.
Yeah, but that was definitely one of the coolest times, the like best experience, bodybuilding experience that I had. Yeah, he was really like just with his time sat and just did it forever. I'll go. I'll let you go. I'm sorry. I feel like I'm taking your whole afternoon. It was really cool. I'd like to go down there and see him again.
Cool. All right, next one here.
Oh, my man, Meadows. I mean, like I think John was probably the most beloved guy in the industry. It's hard to think of anybody like that's like modern era that was as well spoken of as John. And he was a huge influence on me. We have a similar background. You know, we both came up in a time where it wasn't really like a great realistic option to be like a fitness professional. And he was in the finance industry. That's where I was starting in the finance industry. And he, you know, gave up a well-paying job and went all in on his dream. And I was, you know, I graduated in 2010, which the fucking world fell apart for finance. So it's like not necessarily the best time to have a finance degree. And I'm just taking all these interviews at these firms. And a lot of these are like, you know, I'm having to do it like more sales positions, or I'm going against people for like have like 20 years of experience, like are going in like entry level positions. And I was just getting really disheartened. And I had been training already, and I just was like, you know what, fuck this. I'm already making decent money. Like, why am I going to take a pay cut to do this? So I jumped all in. And when I heard him tell his story about how he did similar, like, I mean, he was already established, which is, you know, he had money coming in, but he also gave up a really good job. So mine was just like not even starting that journey, but there was a lot of parallels there. And I paid for his membership site. I haven't paid for much of anything as far as like fitness stuff besides continuing education. I've spent so much money on that, but I was a member of his site way back in the day. I used to listen to him on like the Geared Up podcast. I went to a seminar he did with Scott Stevenson, where I knew it wasn't even like, it was a cool topic, but I just wanted to like hang out with them and see them and talk to them. And this was at the Arnold Classic. We were like, somebody was on the prejudging stage. And so I was trying to get some food. I was starving. And then I see John over there. And this is before I met him. The year after I went to his seminar, and I was like, oh, what's going on? Like, I'm so happy to meet you. And he was like kind of a dick, like not a dick, you know, he just was, I don't think you're a dick if you're not like responsive to somebody. He's just like, hi, good to see you. He's like, and I'm talking to him, I'm saying a couple things about the show. And he's like, he's like, I'm starving. He was just hungry. He was so fucking hungry. He's like, I'm starving. He goes, they don't have any fucking food here. We were looking for food. And then I was like, well, you know, like I've been a member on your site, telling him like things that I had paid for it. Like, and he goes like, oh, what? And then like, he kind of like totally came to himself. I think he was just fucking starving. We were all starving. Yeah, then he sat and talked to me for like 10 minutes, and like, you know, it was great. We ended up getting our food and shit, but that was really cool. You know, it's such a bummer that we lost him, because I really loved John, because he was one of the few people who would like look at things through other lenses besides just a bodybuilding lens. That was, obviously he was a great bodybuilder. He would do things like the fasting. He recommended like full day fast, and he did a lot of stuff outside the box. He wasn't afraid to learn. And I think a lot of influencers nowadays, they don't want to learn. They don't want to expand their knowledge base because it makes them like question what they already know. I think so. He was a big inspiration to me for sure.
Cool. All right, next one here.
Oh my man, Alex. So it's so funny. So yeah, Hormozy. So I had a gym that I opened, which look, that's a long story and stuff I don't own anymore. I got out of that partnership, which, long story short, just be careful who you become partners with in business. If they have done shady stuff in the past, even if you're so close you think it can never happen to you, history can repeat itself. If they've been shady with other business partners, probably not best to get involved. So I'm no longer involved in that, but I did have a gorgeous gym. I mean, we put like 500 grand in about 2,200 square feet. So like we decked it out. I mean, we had all the new Prime stuff, Atlantis, Rogers, a couple Techno Gym, really, really high end, because our clients here, I mean, our clients are paying like 185 or $200 a session. So made it really nice. And while I'm in this process, I just start seeing Hormozy pop up on my Instagram and stuff. I never knew who he was. And like I see his stuff, I'm like, oh, this is kind of cool. He's talking to like gym owners. I'm opening my first like gym. Like maybe I'll look into some of his shit. And then literally, I don't know, 2 weeks after I discovered, not even 2 weeks, probably like 10 days after I discovered who he was, I get something in my inbox, and it's Alex. He's like, hey, I was just wondering, I'm going to be in town. Possibly I could work out at your gym. And I was like, how random is this? I was like, I'm glad I kind of realized who he was right before, because I was like, yeah, for sure, dude. So I was like, definitely. So he came in and we met, we talked a little bit, and he talked about how he kind of like triangulates between Vegas and Scottsdale and Newport. So he's looking for a place where he could, come in that was low key and work out, because we were a private facility, right? And we had all the good equipment. And so I was like, yeah, definitely. And so he was another guy who was just so gracious with his time. I think part of it was because like I worked in Hollywood with like celebrities and stuff. I saw Will Ferrell every day. Like I've been around like I fired Bradley Martin. I don't know, you've probably heard that story before, right? Like he used to work for me. Oh no, I thought that's why you brought him up. Yeah, he used to work for me. I had to fire him right in 2010, 2011. And so like I don't know. And I've just been around so many like famous people. Like I don't, that doesn't do it for me. Like if you're like a PT that I really love and admire, like I'll get geek out about that. But so I just wasn't like hyped up about him. Like I thought it was cool. We talked and shit, but I think he really liked that. And because I remember when we first were communicating, like his assistant would be like, he would talk to me on Instagram, or his assistant would text me and try to like schedule times. And then like one day on my phone, he's like, hey, it's Alex. This is my number. I'm like, oh, okay. I made it in the actual phone. Now I'm not on the Instagram filter and on the through the assistant. So that's pretty cool. So we worked out together a couple of times, and he does full body like every day, like a little bit, like every other day, every day if you can get it in. Always starts with calves. He was in pretty good shape. And he gave some pretty good advice. He let me pick his brain. I spent probably, I don't know, an hour. Like we worked out like twice together, and I spent pretty much the whole, at least 30 minutes each time, just picking his brain between sets. He's a really cool dude. I think that he's somebody that a lot of people kind of like, he has like an image for sure. From what I saw though, like he's a little different than his image projects. Like I mean, not that he's not down to earth. He seems very down to earth, but a lot of that is showmanship. Like I saw some like earnest things about him that I don't think anyone else sees necessarily, just talking to him. And I really appreciate the advice he gave me, because I was like, just give me like 5 minutes, and he gave me like an hour. So that was really cool. I had him spot me on the bench press I was doing. It's on my Instagram. I was doing, what was it, 365 for like I was trying to do one, and he's like, get double. I'm like, fucking like, I'm like almost crushing myself in front of Alex. Like I don't want to fucking like show this blooper and like show myself getting squished right in front of Alex. So I got it up. He motivated me a little bit.
Well, that's hilarious. Yeah, and this image, I think you even talked about it in one of your videos. Like, you have entertainment content, you have education content, and like the mainstream channels kind of all move towards entertainment content because everyone wants to be entertained, and it's easier to do that. So I think it's actually difficult to like just build educational content long term, because people get bored of it eventually, or they don't actually want to learn. They want to turn their brains off. And that's why sports is so big. That's why Netflix is so big, right? It makes sense to lean into entertainment, but that might not be authentic in terms of what you want to bring to the table.
Yeah, and that's why I kind of try to blend it a little bit. Like even like I'll have some pretty serious videos that are all deep on mechanics, but like something ridiculous will come out, and it's not like I'm planning it or thinking about it, that's just where my brain goes. But then when I do like the scrolling through IGs, I definitely try to like make a blend of each. So, because I cover like pretty in-depth topics that are like hidden. If you're like learning without realizing it, you're learning pretty deep stuff. So I think if you blend it, it can be right. There's always certain people that are going to vibe with it and not. Like I definitely lost a fuck ton of followers with one of my videos that I put up, but then I gained a lot of different audience from that too. So you kind of find who your personality is. Like think of Dr. Mike. Like I know so many people that fucking hate his sense of humor, and then I hear so many people like think he's the funniest person in the world.
I think he's moderately funny, but he seems to think he's a comedian, and he's like definitely not funny. Like he's like quirky, makes jokes. Cool, that's fine. He has a
Well,
sense
he's
of humor, but doesn't mean he's funny. Like I don't know if you know like a Theo Vaughn is or
oh yeah.
any of those. Yeah, like he's funny. Like he will make you laugh with the stuff he says all the time. Like that's someone who's actually funny. He's not. It's like effortlessly funny.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, he's funnier on his podcast even. His stand-up's great too, but just him being him. Like when I lived in Hollywood, I would go to the Comedy Store like all the time. I lived right there, so that's when it was at its peak. Pre-COVID, I could go on a Tuesday night and I could see, 6 people that were headlining stadiums and arenas. All in like 20 minutes. And I don't like think I'm like funny in that sense, but I did
No,
do like a couple. I did do open mic like once, and it was like a really cool process. It was like I'm very analytical. I had a very thought out. It was very like well done because it was only like 2 minutes. It was very therapeutic for me. So that was cool. So I really appreciate what they do. I can't imagine doing it more for like 2 or 3 minutes or whatever the fuck I did. It might have been 5, but that's a scary and amazing skill set.
nice. All right, last one here.
The Bumstead. That's funny. I just put this in my my new scrolling through IG. So yeah, this was the night before his Olympia. So I think if I remember correctly, Classic was on the same day as Open. This was his first Olympia. And I don't remember when he qualified. He qualified like the last show, I think, because he got, I don't remember. Do you remember his? I think he got second, and then I think he won a show right before the Olympian. So nobody knew who he was. They thought he looked good, like he had a good look to him. But I mean, he was like an unknown, and people that were in the like no, like we knew he was gonna be really good. And
Okay.
I was getting some food. I can't remember what I was doing, and he's just by himself, just totally just walking around, like no girl, no entourage, no fucking nothing. And I was like, "Hey, Chris, what's going on?" And like he's like, "Oh, somebody's calling me." And we sat there for a second. I was like, "Dude, you're probably about to like your whole life's gonna be different." I was like, "You're gonna do really good." I was like, "And you're gonna have a lot of attention on you." He's like, "Oh, we'll see." He was so humble, which
Yeah.
that's what people always say. He kept it, and we shot the shit for a while, and like I was like, "All right, I gotta go." It's like he didn't have nothing going on, and it's like, I mean, that probably was the last time that ever happened to him because I mean, the next night he did the Olympia and got second place, and just fucking became the poster boy for the division. So like that was probably the last time anyone ever just walked up to him while he was walking around a big public area with no attention ever. Was able to just bullshit with him for 10 minutes.
For sure. Awesome. Jonathan, thanks so much for your time today. I really appreciate it. Where can everyone find you?
Well, my YouTube is my main thing. Jonathan Warren, just search my name, everything should pop up. I'm on Instagram. I post a lot more stories on Instagram. I'll do like some questions and stuff. Sometimes I'll post like kind of problem solving things that I do and try to get input for some of my followers because a lot of them are pretty knowledgeable about this stuff. So Instagram and YouTube. I have my schedule available on my YouTube too. I don't have like a ton of availability, but I do some consultations and some programming. It's all through Calendar. You can check it out there.
Sweet. Thanks for your time. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much, man.